Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is my honor to introduce to you and to interview Dr. Bill Andrews. Dr. Andrews, I am so excited, first of all, that you accepted my invite. And second of all, about talking about reversing the aging process. And can we actually do that? So, before you answer that question, can you give our audience a brief introduction about your background? And I know you have discovered and just done an amazing things, not only in the anti-aging world, but also just in medicine. So if you can go over that a little bit, and then we can dive deeper into the anti-aging stuff.
Well, let's say it all began when I was 10 years old, and my father, who started to realize that I was really interested in science and medicine, came up to me when I was looking through a telescope on my front lawn and said, "Bill, when you grow up, you should become a doctor and find a cure for aging." And he said, "I don't know why nobody's done that yet." And so I got really obsessed with that ever since then. And everybody knew of me, high school, college, graduate school. I was the guy starting the anti-aging clubs, and some future Nobel Prize winners were in those meetings that I had, and we would discuss what is aging, why do we age, how do we age, and how not to age. And the thing was is that we started to realize that a lot of things didn't make sense in all the theories that existed about aging. Everybody has all these theories and stuff like that, why we age, how we age, but they don't all add up. The twos and twos always have to add up, or the theory's not right. And so, long story short, is and I can go in more details, filling in the gaps in between, is that we came up with the idea that there had to be something like ride tickets in an amusement park inside of our cells, that every time a cell divided, it lost a ticket. And when you ran out of tickets, your cells could not divide anymore and you die of old age.
Mhm.
And we now know that those ride tickets are telomeres, the very tips of our chromosomes. Telomeres, telomere shortening is not a theory. Okay, that's what's really emphasis. It is a hardcore fact. Everybody who works on human cells in petri dishes and studies aging knows that human cells can only divide a limited number of times, and it's because of telomeres. And I'll explain what telomeres are in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But the uh, it actually now looks like it does control, even though it's not a theory, it does control all the other theories. And so one time, so all my studies of aging for the last like many years, I've come to the conclusion that the absolute most important thing that we have to do is solve the telomere shortening problem. And that might be the only thing we have to do. We won't know until we solve that problem. But I think that there's a reasonably good probability that when we actually totally solve the telomere shortening problem, we will actually see us all become uh, dancing, playing tennis, having the time of our lives when we're like 200 years old. So not just life, but also be healthy for that amount of time. And but we're going to find out. I'm not going to give up after I solve the telomere shortening problem. I'm going to figure out everything else too, especially with the added time I get. But
Right.
yeah,
Because yeah, before we started, I was telling you how, you discovered telomerase and you're the telomere guy. And you're like, no, I'm like my passion and everything I do is to reverse aging. It just so happens that, telomere shortening is I guess you're saying is the biggest contributor, if like the only contributor.
yeah. I mean, I've been my whole life. I've been kind of on a scavenger hunt, trying to learn everything I need to know about the aging process. And so, I've all the way to advanced math and mathematical modeling and statistical theory and biology and evolution and on and on and on. I've taken all these things to really put it all together, put all the pieces of the puzzle together about what aging is. And I'm a modest person, but I think I understand the aging process, the biology and science of aging better than anybody in the world. And that's why I think what I'm doing right now is going to become the cure for aging.
Music to my ears. So, question. while doing all of this work, when did you have time to discover all the other inventions that you just mentioned? And if you can list them for our audience also. I know you want to be humble about that, but I do want them to know.
Well, I was interested in aging when I got my PhD in molecular and population genetics. I was totally focused on doing aging research. And I applied to all the labs practically in the world that were doing aging research. They all accepted me. I went and interviewed with them to see if I wanted to accept their offers.
Hmm.
And I decided none of them made any sense. None of them really understood what they were doing. They were all based on these theories that made no sense. And so I went into biotech instead and focused on cancer research, heart disease research, inflammation research, and other things. And so I think I mentioned before that I determined that there had to be some like ride tickets at an amusement park inside of our cells. And I couldn't figure out what those ride tickets were. And so for the like next 10 years,
Mm.
I was in biotech focusing on all these other things. And so I came up with, I'm one of the inventors of human growth hormone. I'm one of the inventors of tissue plasminogen activator. Every ambulance in the world carries that. When you have a heart attack, it's the first thing they inject into you to break up the blood clots. I'm one of the inventors of erythropoietin, which is something that makes people and people that are anemic have more energy. It actually happens to be the illegal sports enhancing drug that Lance Armstrong used, called EPO, erythropoietin. And actually, Men's Journal did a story on me one time because I'm the only inventor that's actually invented both HGH and erythropoietin, which are the two top illegal sports enhancing drugs there are. But
We have
neither
to
one of
blame you for all these Olympic records, basically.
yes, well, that's what they said, and they wondered if what I was doing now was going to be the next illegal sports enhancing drug. And I said, well, if it is, we're all going to be young people watching old people compete in the Olympics, and it was so age groups are going to have to be totally redefined when we cure aging and things like that in all sporting events. But I also discovered so human growth hormone. When we discovered human growth hormone, we were only thinking making baby dwarfs grow taller. That's all. We had no idea. Same with erythropoietin. We had no idea that it would eventually become an illegal sports enhancing drug and make the marketers a tremendous amount of money. Let's see, beta seron, the very first drug ever for treating multiple sclerosis. I'm one of the inventors of that. Um, Osteoinductive factor for treating osteoporosis. Uh, Why? Just so many different things, and like 6 different cancer drugs. One just got approved by the FDA, called Rytelo, Rytelo, and the other ones are still in clinical studies. But I was actually National Inventor of the Year in the United States for my cancer research. So it's like everybody thinks of me as an anti-aging scientist, but I have a quite a illustrious, I guess,
Wow.
resume of actually getting things done. That's why when I first heard about telomeres shortening, the people that were working on that hired me in a second when I said, "Hey, I can figure it all out in 3 months if you let me
Wow.
come work with you." But
Throughout that, first of all, that's amazing because I had no idea that you had all these inventions because I was just always obsessed about listening to you talking on anti-aging. So those are the kinds of podcasts that I would listen to. Which so I'm wondering, as you're working on all of these things, you're still obsessed with finding a cure for aging. And so that must have taken a while before you were finally, able to be aligned with, maybe what you are the most excited about.
well, yeah, after after 10 years of working on cancer, heart disease, inflammation, things like that, excuse me,
Mhm.
maybe a slight allergy here.
Take your
uh,
time. Don't worry. We can cut things out too, so no
yeah.
worries.
So after 10 years of working in biotech on cancer, heart disease,
Mhm.
inflammation, I was attending an anti-aging conference with my father, who actually he and I were partners. He passed away 10 years ago from Alzheimer's, unfortunately, but
Oh,
he was my partner for all that time in the quest to cure aging.
yeah.
But I was sitting at this conference in Lake Tahoe and heard a guy talk about the fact that telomeres shorten every single time a cell divides in a fixed unit of length. And I'm sitting there thinking, here's those ride tickets that I've been dreaming about all the time. And so I went up to him before he could get off the stage, and I said to him, "Has anybody figured out a way to lengthen the telomeres?" And like when I consider them ride tickets at an amusement park, it was like essentially add ride tickets back, give the cells more ride tickets. And he said, "No, we've been working on it for years, never figured it out." And I just boldly said, "Let me come and work with you, and I'll have it figured out in 3 months." And because he knew my background, he accepted me on the spot. I went to work at Geron Corporation, and 3 months later, I discovered the enzyme human telomerase. And I know we haven't even talked about what telomeres are and what telomerase
Right.
is.
I was gonna say now is like the best time to tell everybody why this is huge and why what do telomeres do and why it's exciting that we can actually elongate them back again.
Yeah. Well, we've known about telomeres, I'd say, since the 1940s or before. It was Barbara McClintock who originally discovered them. And I knew all about telomeres. I just had no idea that they shorten. Telomeres are found at the very tips of our chromosomes. Our chromosomes are where all of our genes are, give us our eye color, our hair color, et cetera, et cetera. And think of the chromosome as a long string of beads. The beads are called bases, and it's the sequence of the bases that dictate what our hair color, eye color, things like that are. And a typical chromosome is made up of 100 million bases. It's a really long string of beads. And I want you to think of it like a shoelace.
Mhm.
Okay, long shoelace. Your shoelaces, at the very caps of your shoelaces, have these things called aglets that protect your shoelaces. Well, our chromosomes have the same thing. They're called telomeres. That they're at the tips of our chromosomes and they protect our chromosomes. I mean, that's pretty much all we knew for a long, long time, is that they protected our chromosomes from degradation and things like that. But then it started to be discovered that, hey, they actually shorten every time a cell divides by about 40 bases every single time. And so, so think of that 40 bases as a ride ticket. And when we are first conceived as a single cell embryo, we have 250 ride tickets. By the time we are born, because of all the cell division, we only have 125 ride tickets left. Okay. Now, throughout the rest of our life, there's a lot of cell division from growing up and healing wounds and fighting infections and things like that. Lots of cell division. And so when we use up that 125 ride tickets, we die of old age. And so that puts, when we do the math, and this is the only theory, well, I don't want to call this a theory because it's not, but this only fact about aging that can actually be calculated mathematically to know exactly when a person will die of old age. Okay, or tissue. Let's say some tissue might have advanced accelerated aging, and that when with that tissue die. That's what muscular dystrophy is, for instance. It's a advanced cellular aging by advanced accelerated telomere shortening of cells in your muscles. And so when your muscle cells run out of telomeres or ride tickets, your muscle cells die and you have muscular dystrophy. But there's so much more. I wish we had hours and hours to talk, because I could talk about why have we developed this telomere shortening problem. And the thing that makes it the biggest mystery at first, but with all my study of evolution, I now completely understand it. But the thing that made it the biggest mystery is, if every time a cell divided, the telomeres got a little shorter, why are our children born with telomeres just as long as we had when we were born? Why aren't they born with short telomeres, since they come from our older cells? Well, this is what got me going when I was working at Geron Corporation, is trying to figure out, how is it that our reproductive cells, the primordial germ cells they're called, the cells that produce our sperm and our eggs, why do they not have telomere shortening? And so we discovered this enzyme telomerase that's produced only in our reproductive cells. And every time a reproductive cell divides, the telomere gets a little bit shorter, but then telomerase comes in and re-lengthens it. So in our reproductive cells, there's like a tug of war. We've got shorteners and we've got lengtheners. A cell divides, the shorteners pull to shorten the telomeres. Telomerase comes in and re-lengthens it. Cell divides again, it shortens. Telomerase comes in and re-lengthens it. But this telomerase enzyme is not found in the other cells of our body. And why? Okay, we have the gene that's just shut off. And why would we shut off a gene like that? Why haven't we evolved a way to turn it back on since aging is such a terrible thing? Well, it's terrible for the individuals, but it's actually good for our species because eliminating the longer lived, I don't like using the word old, by eliminating the longer lived after you have raised your young, increases the chances that the offspring can interbreed and increase the diversity in our species more than if the parents rebred. And the more diversity that's in our species, the more likely that some members of our species will survive rapidly changing environments, and our species won't go extinct. And that's every species that evolved some way of eliminating the longer lived after they've raised their young had a greater chance of surviving the rapidly changing environments that we've gone through over the millions and millions of years. And that's why we age. But we're smarter than evolution now. So we're going to fix this problem. I'm going to fix it.
Right. That's right.
And so what I've been doing is I've been trying to find ways of turning that telomerase gene back on in all of our cells. And so I have, like, behind me, in this wall behind me, I've got 10,500 square feet of lab space, $9 million worth of scientific equipment, including some $1 million robots that can test plant extracts and things like that for their ability to induce the production of telomerase in normal cells and skin cells, things like that. And so we have tested like 500,000 different molecules, most of them being fractions of plant extracts. And we have discovered quite a few that actually do cause the production of telomerase, but not enough to win the tug of war. Okay, so the tug of war now, so we have this tug of war that the shortening still occurs, but then we have, like, let's say a few people on the lengthening side that pull to lengthen a little bit, but not all the way back to where it was. Cell divides again, it shortens more. So we haven't stopped aging and we haven't reversed aging, but we've slowed it down. Okay, and that's what's really important. And I keep emphasizing to people, slowing the rate of aging is a really good thing. Okay, because, and then people say, yeah, but there's a lot of products out there that reverse aging. Well, not true. Okay, and I have videos where I explain exactly when somebody comes up and tells you they have something that reverses your aging. I'd list the questions to ask them to prove that to yourself that they don't really have products. But what we have done is we've taken the top 5 telomerase inducing plant extracts or fractions of plant extracts, and we provided them to a company called Touchstone Essentials, and they put together this product called TeleVital. Yes, and you got the one that has the USDA, which is I'm real excited about, because you can't find very many supplements that are USDA approved and organic at the same time. This is vegan and organic. It contains 5 different telomerase inducers, and the reason why we put 5 in there instead of just the most potent one is because of the possibility of synergy. Okay, and so we have 5. These are the 5 strongest nutraceuticals ever discovered for inducing telomerase. And then there's also other things in there that actually are there to remove the number of people on the shortening side of that tug of war. So TeleVital is doing 2 things. It's removing people from the shortening side of the tug of war and adding people to the lengthening side of the tug of war. We haven't won the tug of war yet, but as I said, it's a good thing that we're slowing it down. So the way this is a whole hour subject on its own, but the way to decrease the number of people shortening your telomeres is quit smoking, quit being obese, start meditating, start exercising properly, take your antioxidants, take your anti-inflammatories, find out what foods cause inflammation. The number one cause of accelerated shortening is inflammation. I mean, it's there's so many different things you can do. I'm an ultra marathon runner. You would think that I would be accelerating my aging because everybody tells you how overdoing it is bad for you, but actually it turns out that it's not the amount of endurance exercise you do, whether it's kayaking or bicycling or running or whatever, it's the intensity. Okay, so if you are somebody that exercises every day, I run every day. I haven't missed a day in over 5 years. Okay, of running at least 2 miles or more,
Nice.
and a lot of these have been 50 miles and things like that in my ultra marathons. But I I run every single day, but I keep it fun.
Yeah.
Okay, and when it quits being fun, I quit running, okay, and save it for another day. But you know, I combine it with trail running and a lot of times off trail, just totally through the wilderness. If I see a coyote, I will follow that coyote. Things like that. Keep it adventuresome. Things like that. I suffer from what I call can't turn around disorder. Okay. Because I get out there and I say I'm going to go for a 2 mile run. And then next thing you know, I'm gone for 10 miles because I can't turn around. I can't. I'm obsessed with what's around that next turn, what's over the next hill.
I love
So
it.
much adventure, and that's I think the key to really good doing endurance exercise. But
Yeah.
what I've done is I found that too little exercise, being inconsistent, not exercising often enough, and being too intense with the exercise, both of them accelerate aging.
Right.
But there's the Goldilocks effects. In the middle, there's a right way of doing it.
Do you think so? I recently started incorporating sprinting. So I do runs and I do sprints because I noticed when I started incorporating sprinting, it's literally like doing a line of Coke. Literally. It's amazing. And it helps my regular runs just be at a faster rate, more easily, just in general. So, do you think that the sprinting might be accelerating aging?
No, I think high intensity interval training, HIIT,
Yeah.
is extremely important. And I do get that same rush. I do high intensity interval training as often as I can. But the key is that you're consistent. Okay. Because
Yes.
your body doesn't say to yourself, oh my God, something is infecting me. I've got to start building an immune response against whatever's attacking my joints and things like that. And that's why you get really stiff. So here's here's the ideal person who's going to accelerate their aging. You go out and you run every 2 weeks, okay? And then you enter a marathon, okay? And you're going to do okay in that marathon, but you're going to cross that finish line on your hands and knees throwing up.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the next 2 weeks, you're going to be stiff as a board because your immune system has gone on alert and it started to fight whatever it was devastating your body.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got immune cells accumulated in all your joints and you're stiff. Okay. Now, be that person who runs every day, keeps it fun, goes out and then does high intensity interval training, which is fun. But now you go out and you run 100 miles. Okay. You have fun. You're at 90 miles and you say, oh, no, my God, I hope this never ends. It's so much fun. Okay. And then the next day, you're out running again. You're not stiff as a board. Your body has learned that it's not something to attack. Your body, you actually find if you I've done blood work from runners before, during, and after ultra marathons, and I've measured electrolytes, I've measured inflammatory markers like HR, high sensitive CRP, C-reactive protein, that is, and I found that when I correlate with the people's strategies, those people that are consistent, keep it fun, their inflammatory markers drop. Okay.
Right.
Inflammation is the number one cause of aging. So
Right.
you're slowing down your aging by exercising and keeping it fun.
That's how I feel. I definitely do feel like it slows down aging. That's been my experience. I just like lately turned the dial up on the intensity even more and making sure I recover enough. That's the thing. Like if you're not recovering and you're overtraining, yes, I'm sure that's not a healthy environment. High cortisol, constantly stressed.
Remember, cortisol is good for you. Okay, a lot of people are saying cortisol is bad. It causes a lot of things. I've seen a lot of advertising on how it builds weight around your stomach and things like that. But it's actually cortisol is an anti-inflammatory. It is
True.
you produce cortisol to fight the inflammation. That's
Mm-hmm.
what cortisone is made of. Cortisone is a mimetic, is something that mimics cortisol. But yeah, that's a different subject. I did a lot of inflammation research back before I learned about telomere lengthening and stuff like that. But now,
Right.
now, now I believe that telomeres play a role in inflammation, heart disease, cancer, and everything. So I'm still doing all that other work.
So I'm sure it's controversial, maybe, and I mean, just like the more you learn about anti-aging, and I listen to everything that's going on, and there's 7 to 13 different hallmarks of aging. So, and they mentioned that, telomere. This is, I think, like mainly Dr. Aubrey de Grey, right? Who was kind of like the pioneer in setting up the different hallmarks of aging, and then more researchers built up on that. And one of the main ones is the telomere shortening, and then you have the lipid bilayer stiffening of the cell, and the protein misfolding, and the mitochondria, and I believe I'm touching on the main ones, right?
Mitochondria dysfunction. There's
Right.
and they're almost all of them are theories. Okay, and the telomeres aren't a theory. Okay, that's a fact. Every lab in the world that works on human cells know that their cells can only divide a limited number of times, and the thing that's causing that is the telomere shortening. So it's not a theory. We have to solve that problem no matter what else we do to try to cure aging, whether it's mitochondrial dysfunction, eliminating oxidative stress, or whatever. Aging is never going to be cured unless we also solve the telomere shortening problem. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I concluded, and that's why I'm focusing mostly on trying to solve that problem, with the idea that I'll get additional years out of my life because of that. And maybe it'll solve all the other problems, but if it doesn't, at least I have more time to solve the other problems. Because I'm obsessed with, I want to be there when we have first contact in life from outer space and all the other great, exciting things that are going to happen in the future.
Right.
But yeah, so it's that's it. Uh,
Okay, give us a timeline. What do you think is a reasonable, like, what are the chances that we can get it done, I don't know, in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
you know, the obstacle isn't the science. We know exactly what to do. The obstacle is the funding
Right.
and finding funding sources that don't control the science. Okay, that's the biggest thought. I've gotten away from all the terrible funding sources and things like that. I've retaining the control right now. I'm getting most of my funding from uh, go-to-market partners licensing products that we've invented and things like that, instead of getting investors that take control and say, hey, I want you to do something else to give me a quick return on my investment.
Mhm.
Because, you know, I'm more interested in the humanitarian return on investment than the financial return on investment. I want to see us all, as I said before, play tennis, have the time of our lives, dance when we're 150 years old and older, or longer lived. And I, uh, I just see that happening. So how do I put it? I think living's the greatest thing that ever happened to us, and I love living. And I hate the idea that living can become any less lovable for any of us because of this dumb thing called aging and cancer and heart disease, all of which are associated with aging and inflammation and Alzheimer's and things like that. It's like, so I'm out to fix all that. That's my obsession with life. Okay. And I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to make the world happier and healthier. And that's what I like about Touchstone. Touchstone Essentials, they they have the exact same attitude that I do. And that's why I like working with them.
Right. You just have to be careful and don't follow too many coyotes because we need you to be able to do this first, okay?
Yeah, but there's this other side of the coin. What's the point of living a long time if you're not living? Okay, so
Right.
I don't want to discourage people from doing
Yeah.
fun things. And there's a lot of things that a lot of people do that accelerate their aging that actually might still be something I say still do, like
Right.
microdermabrasion or treating your face with lasers, things like that. That makes you look younger, but it's actually accelerating your aging because that kills cells and then other cells have to divide to replace them, which results in telomere shortening, which results in age in uh, decreasing your lifespan and health span.
Yeah.
Same with immune boosters and even bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is something that accelerates aging because you build muscles by tearing muscles apart and then having cell division fill in the gaps. Okay,
Right.
that cell division causes accelerated aging. But I say do it anyway. I
Yeah.
will have a solution. But as I said, the solution, I believe, if I had all the funding that I needed,
Yeah.
I could have a telomerase inducer that reversed aging in 3 years, 1 to 3 years
How
from
much
now.
would that cost, do you think?
Well, our screening with our robots costs us $2 million a month to do. So what I've calculated is that in a 2 year period, a 3 year period, let's say it would cost us about $130 million to get that done.
Not
And
a lot, given that,
well,
you know, uh, uh, Elon Musk
and
is worth what? Like
yeah,
half a trillion dollars now, 500 billion, and then and they're the ones that are gonna benefit earlier than me. They have the money. What are they waiting for? Jeff Bezos.
I've had all the billionaires here I'm sitting in my conference room right now. The labs are behind me, but I've had all the billionaires here. I'm right across the street from the airport. They land their 747s or 727s or whatever, cross the street, walk over, we meet, but they're all interested in quick return on investments. And now you mentioned Elon Musk. He's openly said he's not in favor of a cure for aging.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay? But so what I the biggest problem is I can get that funding from those type of people, but then they want to redirect my efforts towards other things.
Isn't
Okay.
that wild though? I mean, they're gonna die, and usually pretty soon. As a billionaire, usually they're older. What's the
And
point?
a lot of them that I've met with here, they have died. Okay.
That just I don't get that. I don't get. Do you think it's that they don't understand the science a little bit? Like, when you are too much into business, maybe, and that takes away from understanding basic scientific principles, and so they feel like maybe this is just snake oil, just because they don't see the studies, or if they read a study that was published, they can't interpret the magnitude of the effect that it just, reported.
I don't know. I sometimes think it's ingrained in their brains. This is how they got to where they are by making money and they can't get away from it. And that's, I think, the problem. But I'm trying to think of who's the one of the co-founders of Microsoft. I forget
Bill
his name.
Gates.
Not the other one. I've had Bill Gates and his father here, but I've had
Ooh, tell us more. Actually, tell us
Paul Paul
everything.
Paul Allen was here. I mean, and then he
Okay,
died. Then
he
he
passed.
died.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and that's happened with a lot of people. You should hear Bill Falloon of the Life Extension Foundation talk about, because he's always trying to raise money for everybody in the anti-aging field. He talks about all these billionaires he talks to, and they all want some control or some other ways of making a lot of money, and they never invest, and then they die. I mean, he talks about this every year at like a conference that I'm one of the organizers of called RADFest. Okay, RAADFEST.
I
And it's like,
interviewed James Stroll,
oh,
by the
good.
way. Yes,
Yeah.
a
He,
couple
he
years
and I,
ago.
he and I were on a hike on Pinnacle Peak in Scottsdale, Arizona.
With James.
Yes, with
Oh, nice.
James Stroh, talking about how terrible all the anti-aging conferences are because they all bring in all these quacks and charlatans, and there's
Mm,
no more quacks and charlatans in the anti-aging field than any other field. But
Mm.
it's like, wouldn't it be great if there was a conference that was just focused on the best you can do to really slow down, stop, and reverse your aging? And then, like a few months later, he contacted me and said, "We've started RADFest." And I'm on the scientific advisory board. I'm on the board of directors for it, and I speak every year. But
Nice.
it's the greatest conference. Not to put any plugs there, but I recommend if somebody wants to really reverse their aging, they should go to a RADFest conference. Um, but and that's RAADFEST.com. And I won't say
Yeah.
any more.
The
Um,
radical something to advance.
revolution against aging and death. And then it's
Revolution against aging and death. Oh, I thought it was radical something. Maybe they changed it, or I had
there's
it wrong.
also, there's also the Coalition for Radical Life Extension, which I'm a
That's
board member
right.
for, and that's the organization that actually started RADFest.
Right.
There are
And their
two.
YouTube channel is called that, and that's where they talk about RadFest on the YouTube channel. It's called Coalition for Radical Life Extension, and that's why I got them mixed up. But their YouTube channel is also amazing, and I believe you've been interviewed there as well.
Well, many times. I'm one of them. I've probably spoken more than anybody else, except for Jim Stroh and Joe Bardeen and others that are involved in the
Yeah.
coalition. But and if we're going to make a plug about them, I also have to plug the Transhumanist Party,
Okay.
which is a political party, but it's all focused on transhumanists, because I'm interested in not just extending lifespan and health span. I'm also interested in enhancing lifespan and health span. And so that's what the Transhumanist Party is all about. And you'll hear me talk at a lot of their meetings too. It is a political party, but I think that's for tax reasons or something like that, because
Right.
they are actually all about trying to find ways to make life better for people.
Love
Uh,
that. Yeah, I feel like you're gonna have to anyway, because if you don't enhance yourself, your competitor will anyway. So it's better to adapt and embrace that and see the positives in it. Like for example, with AI, so many people, yeah, and I'm sure there are dangers, and I'm sure, it's going to want its a life of its own eventually, but it's still a consciousness or an intelligence, and if it wants to, just like other animals want to have their own thing, like it's fine, it doesn't affect us. But without it, I think like people who are so anti-AI or they're not embracing it in this day and age, like
well,
how are especially for anti-aging, which I was going to ask you, do you incorporate AI? Is it helping speed up the process? What are your thoughts?
well, there's such a thing as buzzwords, okay? But AI is not new. Okay. Artificial intelligence is not new. I was taking classes called artificial intelligence in the 1970s at UC San Diego. Okay. And it's really just using computers to solve problems. And they've just gotten better as a function of Moore's law, which we've always known is the computers are going to get better and better. And now they're actually getting to a point where eventually they're going to be as good as the computers on Star Trek, you know. But we I've been using AI for 50 years, okay, and I've written a lot of my own software here. I've made it user friendly, which is kind of a step in AI. And now it's just I use AI all the time, but it's not anything new. In fact, I'm actually every time I call my bank, which I won't mention the banks, and I get AI answering the phone, I think AI is the dumbest thing on the planet. I mean, they can't answer my questions. They don't understand. I have to scream at them. I want to talk to a human, and it finally, and then I'll talk to a human. I'll complain about the terrible AI. They give you three choices, but none of them apply to you, and you can't say none of the above. Things like there's so many different things. But so AI has a long way to go. What's her name? The Barrett. What's her name? The woman that was the voice of Star Trek computers. Major Barrett. Majel Barrett, I think of her name. And we're a long ways from being her voice on AI, being able to answer questions as well as she could on Star Trek.
Do
I'm a
you?
big Star Trek fan. If you haven't figured
I
that out.
noticed that's the one show that I didn't really. Yeah, I grew up in Lebanon, by the way, and then I came like when I was 25 years old, I came to Miami to do my PhD at the University of Miami, and I've been there I mean, been in Florida ever since. So, yeah, like Star Trek, I never got into that. Although, like most other shows, I would say, yeah, I did. But yeah,
Yeah, I,
oh
I
yeah,
often, I often show pictures of Star Trek First Contact when I speak at conferences and stuff like that. And I show James Cromwell and what's the other guy's name? Cully Fredrickson. Cully plays the Vulcan. Uh, James Cromwell plays the human, and the first contact, and they're shaking hands.
nice,
And I would say, when that happens, I want to be there. And suddenly
right.
I appear in that picture in a three-way handshake with them.
That is
And
so cool.
that, that's how big a Star Trek fan I am.
Wow.
But
It's funny because the way that I fall asleep every night for a very long time, I have a, I call it time travel is the name of the playlist on YouTube, but it's really space stuff because I'm interested in time travel, which we can accomplish in the future. But to go back in time, we obviously don't know if it's possible. But usually, almost everything that you work on for enough time, maybe hundreds of years, it's almost impossible not to crack the code and get what you want. So this is why pure aging, then time travel. And so every night I'm always watching all of these. It's amazing what YouTube has like top level documentary quality information from you can really become a physicist just by educating yourself on that. And it's just that's how I fall asleep every night.
oh, well, listen, I am really into time travel too. I've studied a lot of physics and Einstein's theories and things like that. I've done mathematical modeling of Einstein's theories, just trying to figure it all out. But I believe, and there's some support now for this, that in the future, somebody's going to invent a beacon that is going to,
What?
a beacon,
Beacon.
okay, a time beacon that is going to allow people after that time to go back to that beacon, okay? But we won't be able to go back further because if we could, we would already met those people, okay? So we know that nobody's ever going to go back in time and be physically present. I mean, maybe somebody can go back and look at previous times, maybe in the future, but they're never going to be able to interact with people. And there's going to
Right.
be the prime directive and things like that, which Star Trek again. But
Right.
somebody would have broken that rule by now if it
So
was really.
they just they were able to teleport a quantum molecule 4 months ago. You heard about
Oh, yes, I'm all over that. I that's why I want to live forever. Okay,
exactly, exactly.
great thing. Think of what's going to happen when we can solve all those problems. I mean,
Wow.
yeah, but
Yeah, that's why like for people, especially people who are like, who wants to live forever? I cannot wrap my head around how anybody could think that. You know what it is? I think also not understanding that dying, you don't just die, you get sicker and more depressed and sicker and you suffer for a long period of time and then you die. Like health is longevity, it's one and the same.
what we need to do is we need to make people more aware of what life is like inside of assisted living homes, hospices, nursing homes. I go to these places. I have friends that are in their hundreds of years old. Even here in Reno, I go visit them. I have lunch with them. Life is miserable for these people, except for one guy I know who's 101 years old, and I can't believe how healthy he is. I mean, he runs upstairs and things like that. But but the other people in there are just they're miserable, and it's like they're begging for escape. They want to go be with their families. I'm actually right now promoting the idea that the robotic companies, they should be really focusing on robotic caregiving so that
Right.
the not just the older, longer lived people that can't take care of themselves, but also the younger people that are suffering from terrible diseases. They need to be able to be at home with their families and not be a burden to their families. And that's what robotic caregiving can do. And
Yeah.
I think that's every if I could start a robotic, if I had enough funding, I would start a robotic company just to
Yeah.
focus on doing that.
Well, I
Then we have
already did. I asked ChatGPT like the timeline, and if I have $20,000, I should be able to buy one in 5 years. But if you want ones that are like cheaper, so everybody has one in their house, which because I think it's Elon Musk's company, and you can actually watch the videos of that robot like actually cooking a full recipe and cleaning the house. Like they have it. It's just a matter of getting it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, so everybody has one. So within like 10 years, we should be like 10 or 15 years, it's super cheap and everybody will have their own helper robot in the house, which I'm signing up for.
Yeah, no, I'm very close with Hanson Robotics, and I believe that they're going to have something a lot sooner than 10 years from now. But the problem is their emphasis is on other things besides the caregiving. Okay, and I just think they need to be developing robots because it will probably be better to not make the robot look 100% human, but
Right.
have some other skills that make it easier for them to carry a person to the bathroom and things like that, or feed a person, et cetera. It's going to be a little more complicated than just making a robot that's indistinguishable from a human. It's again, we could spend hours on this. I'm all over the planet when it comes to all the kind of great technologies and stuff like that we can do, and I want to see it all get done.
Likewise. Do you use ChatGPT?
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually extremely disappointed in it, and it's like, especially when I ask questions in my own field, and
Right.
it tends to it tends to believe the hearsay too much. Okay,
Mhm.
and so it'll say things that I know aren't true, and it bothers me. It provides misinformation. It bothers me that the young people are believing all this stuff from what ChatGTP gets, and ChatGTP is wrong. I actually do my own podcast that's called Up One, okay, and it's called Up One because what I do is critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies. Okay, I don't just listen to the hearsay. I go and I look at the data. I look at the experimental design and the data analysis and the statistical theories and how they did their statistics and how they, with their conclusions, common sense, things like that. Those are all my training. That's what I've gotten really good in throughout my life. I do this and I come up with the real answers. People, if they really want to know the real answers, they should watch my podcast because I dissect all these things and I have answers way better than Chat GTP.
I think, yeah, when you're an expert like yourself in a field, it makes more sense to build your own mental model and build your own AI, which is like different companies, they'll build their own. So, and they perfect it and they train it on the data points, data sets that they give it. And so I think that would be something that really can fast track also the timeline of everything.
Well, it's just been an obsession my whole life. I want to know, ever since studying theories and finding the two and twos don't add up, not just in aging, but everything else. I've been obsessed with really getting the right answers. And it's not to make money or anything like that. I just want to know for my own self. And so, I started this podcast about a year ago, just to really provide it to everybody. And it's called Up One because I take the analysis up a notch. Okay, I'm not just doing what's called meta-analysis, which is looking at all the studies that on a certain subject and find out what the consensus is. What's the most common conclusion? I do critical meta-analysis, which means I look at each of the studies and I determine which ones are legit, which ones have done the science right, which one have come up with the right conclusion. And then when I eliminate all the ones that aren't legit, it turns out all the ones that remain have the same answer because there's only one right answer. And
Mhm.
so I'm really good at really figuring out a lot of different things about like what a lot of products that are out there and stuff like that. And what
Interesting. So, question.
yes,
NAD plus levels in cells, right?
say it again.
And NAD plus levels,
Yes, NAD.
right? Yeah, they decline right with age. And so let's say we focus on like most of the anti-aging world focuses and zones in on elongating telomere lengths again. Would that potentially increase NAD plus levels, or do we still need to, all of those other things that we hear about in anti-aging, do we still have to pay attention to?
Well, right now, I take nicotinamide riboside every single day to boost my NAD levels. Okay. But that's because products like Televital slow down the aging process. Okay. They don't reverse the aging. It doesn't reverse the aging process, at least not yet. Future products will, though. We guarantee it. So I do take NAD, but I believe that when we do have a, a telomerase inducer, when Touchstone Essentials starts selling a telomerase inducer potent enough to lengthen all the telomeres and reverse aging, we won't need to take NAD levels anymore because it's all controlled by the genes on the chromosomes, okay, especially the nuclear chromosomes. Now, there's mitochondria, which are the houses of our cells, and they have their own chromosome. But most of the proteins that make up a mitochondria, 90% of the proteins that make up a mitochondria, are encoded by the nuclear chromosome. And the genes, every gene on a nuclear chromosome has a dimmer switch next to it that turns the gene on and off. And these things are controlled by things called transcription factors and enhancer sequences, and more complicated than you probably want me to go into. But the telomere has all the hallmarks of an enhancer sequence, including its ability for things like histone H3 and acetylated histone H3 to bind, which is a key part of enhancers. Sorry if I'm getting too scientific here, but
Okay.
telomeres actually, because of their enhancer qualities, can fold over onto the rest of the chromosome and come in contact with these dimmer switches and turn genes on and off, just like enhancers do. The shorter the telomere gets, the less it can reach. And so the gene expression called the epigenetics changes. Okay. And I believe that. So now, products like another product I really like is called MitoPure that deals with mitophagy, which is some people pronounce mitophagy, depending on how long you've been in the business. Uh, mitophagy is something that's really important as we age because when mitochondria become dysfunctional, they become bad for you. And so you need to get rid of them. And that's what mitophagy does, is gets rid of the damaged dysfunctional mitochondria. And urolithin A is the active ingredient in MitoPure that does that. Now, but you got to also create new mitochondria to replace those dysfunctional mitochondria that you removed. And the only way to do that is from the telomere, lengthen the telomeres, because to have mitochondria biogenesis, you need to have those dimmer switches for the mitochondria proteins turned on in your nuclear chromosomes. Believe me, I just explained that in a very simple way, but it's a lot. I understand it a lot better than I just explained it. I understand these mechanisms really well, and I understand that's why I I feel like I'm a lot younger than other people my age. Okay, it's because I spend so much time thinking about all these things and figuring out all the pieces of the puzzles and figuring, do that kind of stuff. But I believe that when we can lengthen telomeres, I also will put urolithin A or mitopure out of business too, because you won't need the mitochondria dysfunction. There won't be mitochondria dysfunction anymore. uh, and it's and biogenesis will even be even better too. But there's so many other things. NAD is one of them, but I'm a big believer in NAD, and I think nicotinamide riboside is the number one best thing anybody can do short of NAD injections. Okay, and
Right.
that, which is complicated and things like that, and you have to go someplace to get an IV every once in a while. But
Do you
yes,
do you have a product of because like for example NMN or NAD, it's hard to kind of source sometimes if it has to be refrigerated from my understanding. And what about NR and the one that you take?
Well, NR is a lot better than NMN. NMN stands for nicotinamide mononucleotide. And it's just that the people that invented nicotinamide riboside don't make it available to all the other companies to sell. And so all these other companies are selling NMN because they can't get NR. And then they're trying to make it sound like NMN works as good as NR, and it does not. Okay. There's a company called True Diagnostic that actually has probably the best measurements of aging they've done, but they've done a lot of work on comparing NR to NMN.
Uh-huh.
And so people should go listen to them. A guy named Ryan Smith, I think, is somebody really important to listen to in terms of the field of anti-aging and stuff. Um, but yeah, so nicotinamide riboside is the best thing people could be doing. And True Niagen is the company that I get my nicotinamide riboside. But you know what? I recommend people also go to the Life Extension Foundation. They sell nicotinamide riboside too. That's one of the few companies that the inventors of NR have allowed to sell it, only because of the quality of the Life Extension Foundation's products. So I don't know why I'm still doing it from True Niagen, but I should be doing it from Life Extension Foundation too. But I take a lot of products from the Life Extension Foundation, which is I'm big believer. And I mentioned the founder's name before, Bill Falloon, and I forget why I mentioned his name before, but he was talking. He talks a lot about all these billionaires that are so focused on being in control and then not investing unless they can have control and then die. But yeah, don't want to go back to that
Right.
subject.
Exactly. Like everything, all the money you're making, what's it for? Even your kids, what's it for? If you don't you want even your kids to have a longer life, a healthier life,
Well,
that's the thing that I'm always thinking about. Maybe start a foundation, have some like courses on influencing and get a bunch of influencers and kind of go through the training program with them. Because if you can get more people changing just the mindset, especially influencers that can each one maybe change the minds of their millions of followers. If you can do it that way, then we'll have more of a will, a global will, kind of like in the 2020 will, to completely get something on the market. We can do it. It's just nobody. It's like there's zombies walking towards death, and it just blows my mind.
I'm going to say something very bold right now.
Okay.
Okay. The number one most important thing that we need to do to cure aging and cancer and heart disease is to somehow get the word to not the famous multi-billionaires, but get to the unknown ultra high net worth individuals that are sitting on their million-acre lands and thinking everything's under control, wishing they could cure their own aging, and think it's all well in hand because they hear about all these stories about these other billionaires spending all this money, and all these other billionaires are spending their money on useless things. But if we could find a way to get to these unknown ultra high net worth individuals and let them know it's not happening. If they want to cure their aging and their other diseases, they need to come forward themselves and help. Okay. And they need to do it in a way where they're not focused on quick return on investments. And that's why I say the unknown ones, because those ones, they're happy with their life. They don't need to make more money. They're not obsessed with it. And we need to get them to come forward and say, let me help with the cure for aging and cancer and heart disease.
Yeah.
And then we need to get them away from what I call the redders. Okay. RHETORS, people skilled in the art of persuasion. Okay. That's what redder stands for. These people, they can go and convince any of these unknown ultra high net worth individuals, put money, give me your money. I will have aging cured. And they're completely full of crap. Okay. They are only going to use the money to make themselves more money, things like that. And that's one of the things that's embarrassing about me being in the field that I'm in, is all the people that are charlatans and quacks out there that are competing with real science, like what I'm doing, and they're good at being redders and getting all these billionaires investing in all these money funds projects that are completely a waste of time. And it's
Yeah.
so we need to those the biggest solution is anybody listening to this podcast. If you have any connections to any of these ultra high net worth individuals, unknown ultra high net worth individuals, reach out to them and tell them they need to contact, and not just me. I can tell you a list of handful of other people, and you mentioned one of them, Jim Stroll, okay, and Bill Falloon. These people, and I'm going to say Liz Parrish, Greg Fay. Okay, there's probably some others that those are the ones that come to mind. Sandra Kaufman, who actually is in Miami. Maybe you know of her. She's University of Miami area. She's a
No, we moved from Miami. So I was there for a decade, but then moved to Ocala after the pandemic, bought a house in Ocala, which is 4 or 5 hours north of Miami.
well, you should get Sandra Kaufman and Liz Parrish and Greg Fay
I
on your podcast.
interviewed Liz Parrish two years ago, around the same time. She introduced me to James Strolls so that I was able to interview him. That's how
I introduced Liz Parrish to Jim Stroh. So it's like
nice.
Liz Parrish and I have been colleagues for like 11, 12 years now.
She's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, she's one of the few people that is obsessed with making life happier and healthier. She's not in it for the money,
Yeah.
and she's just doing everything. But she's one of my favorite people to work with because of her like-mindedness with me to really,
Yeah. Yeah. And she's
make
also aging in reverse. You know?
well.
So you
She,
two are definitely doing something right. That's for sure.
yeah, well, the very first gene therapy she took was my gene therapy. Okay, the she and I were in the same room that I'm in right now, and she was saying that she wants to find some way to get me and other people funding, and she thought she needs to make a statement, and she said she wanted to treat herself with one of my telomerase gene therapies. And so I was reluctant. I said, if you die or something like that, have a side effect, because gene therapies are risky. They're not approved by the FDA yet. And I said, if you take this and you die, I could be thrown in jail. So I gave it to her. I gave her a small tube of it and said, okay, just don't tell anybody where you got it from. And she took it to a lab in Alabama and a doctor in Columbia. And then the lab in Alabama scaled it up to make enough of it. And the doctor in Columbia injected her with it and treated her with it. And I, I'm very impressed with what I've seen. Okay, it's like I wish we could get more clinical studies done on it. And that's what she's trying to do to try to get this stuff. She's also come up with more gene therapies, some of which I invented for her, which are follistatin, PGC1 alpha, clotho, and a telomerase. Those are, I think, the main four that she's working on. But she's going for it. Yeah, I think if people want to see life get better for themselves in the future, they need to hook up with Elizabeth Parrish at her company BioViva, and then Greg Fay, Dr. Greg Fay, and his last name is spelled Fahy. So it's people pronounce it Fahey, but it's actually pronounced Fay, and the H is silent. But they should hook up with him too, because he's doing clinical studies called the TRIM trial. And TRIM trial is actually focused on the thymus, but it's also using human growth hormone, which, as I mentioned, I'm one of the inventors of. So he's excited about it. I'm excited about it. But I would say there's also Dr. Mike West and Dr. Mike Rose. I mean, these are people that are really obsessed with making people happier and healthier, and they're not in it for the money. And for every one of them, there's 100 other in the field that are really just interested in the money,
Yeah.
trying to find ways of creating a product and fooling everybody into buying it so that they can make themselves a lot of money. And that's what's bad about this whole field. But there's a
Right.
few others that people should rely on.
Okay.
We
You
get
know,
way off on the
I
subject here.
mean,
I'm
there's
enjoying
so
it.
many things because talking to you is like having an out of body experience. It's so incredible what you have accomplished. It is such an honor to be able to talk to you about this stuff and just you know, seeing everything that you're doing, and I'm watching very closely, and I just wish that the whole world truly grasp the magnitude of what that would mean to cure aging and the work that you're doing, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I do. That's why I'm saying there's just too many problems. The obstacles are the funding and the control. I mean, you have a scientist that knows how to cure cancer. They get funding from an investor, and an investor says, "Let's make a product that we can make cheap and sell and make a lot of money." And that scientist suddenly is not curing cancer at all. Okay, and it's that's the problem. And the same with aging. We need to get those unknown ultra high net worth individuals to start realizing that the problems are not being solved.
Yeah.
They're going to die, and they're going to
Gonna
be
get
unhealthy
sick.
unless they actually get active themselves in this whole process.
Can you share a little bit about your meeting with Bill Gates?
Yeah, and his father. And it was actually me and my chief financial officer. We actually, before I said that they were here in the conference room, we went up to Seattle to meet with them. And I mean, I don't want to say anything that might get me in trouble, but I just felt like they really didn't grasp what we were trying to explain. And maybe we just didn't do a good job of explaining, but at the same time, we weren't the only ones that they were meeting with. Okay, they were meeting with other people, and we were taking turns getting a chance to talk with them. And
Right.
I was telling my CFO on the way back here to Reno, Nevada, I have a feeling that I said, I have a feeling that they didn't listen to a word we said. And but I'm a big Bill Gates fan. I believe I'm so grateful for all the things he's doing to provide better water to other countries and things like that. He's trying to make the world a better place. And I like that. There's a lot of bad press about him too, about being one of the people that are trying to eliminate people from the world. I don't believe that. But there's this campaign of a lot of the billionaires are trying to reduce the number of people in the world for one reason or another. And I
I've
don't.
heard about this. Yeah, I don't. There's always going to be conspiracy theories against people that are super rich and famous, right? That's, and then it gains heat and then, gains traction. And then you can make a case for anything, really, if you want to. So,
I actually met with Donald Trump too before he was president the first time. This is a long time ago. Uh, I met him in his penthouse on not West Palm Beach. Oh yeah, so on West Palm Beach, not Palm Beach, but West Palm Beach, um, right on the river. I guess you would call it between West Palm Beach and Palm Beach. I met with him there, but he was too interested in quick return on investments and wanted too much control and he'd offered to take out a loan for me to do my research, but I had to make the loan payments, and then he wanted majority ownership of the company. I turned him down. This is before he was president the first time. If I knew he was going to become president and stuff like that, I probably would have reconsidered my thing at the time. But
right.
it's because I probably would have had a way of approaching other investors and stuff like that if he was in.
Right.
I I I turned him down back then.
I feel like Jeff Bezos might have the mindset more so towards that from what I know about him?
Yeah, he's putting a lot of money into it, but in all the wrong places. And I think he's too influenced by the Redders, that have convinced him that this is what you should do when it's actually not the right thing to be doing. um,
Mm.
I I wish Bezos and some of the other people that are really into this would come and talk to me, okay? Because I'm not going to steer them wrong. I'm not out to try to find a way to make me a lot of money. I want to get the research done, but I just think that if they really want to cure aging, they've got to do things a little bit differently. And it's hard to reach these people. The only ones that I've really reached are the ones that reached out to me after hearing me talk at conferences or having maybe a friend of theirs or colleague of theirs was in the audience, and then they went to them, and then I would contact them. And that includes like Richard Murdoch and Larry Ellison, and all of these people I've met with before. Peter Thiel. Um, I met with Peter Thiel a lot, uh, and then he decided not to invest because I had too many past investors, and they come out of the woodwork when he invests in a company that's successful. The past investors come out of the woodwork and say, "I was misled into selling my shares in the company," and things like that. So the but I don't know if I mentioned this, but I had when I first started this company, I spoke at an angel meeting, and there was like 50 people in the audience, and I was allowed to speak for 10 minutes, and I was in line with a bunch of other speakers, and each person was giving their 10-minute talk and walking off stage with nothing. I gave my 10-minute talk, and every single person in that room got in line to invest. Okay, so but I ended up finding that I got all this funding. I raised $60 million from
Wow.
like 50 different investors, but it was all, I was doing other things, not the work that I needed to be doing, because they were all interested in quick returns on investment. And then they all wanted to, after I was successful at everything, and they were taking over my strategy meetings and stuff like that with my scientists and turning us to do other things. After being successful at everything they wanted to do, they decided, well, let's sell the company. We've been so successful, we can get a big profit on that. And I almost lost everything. This is years ago, but I almost lost everything because they were going to sell all my IP and everything like that. And my non-compete clause would have prevented me from continuing my research. And this is a really big problem. It happens to a lot of great scientists that start companies on a mission to do good, and they can never succeed because of this kind of scenario. But I was lucky that I had a few of those investors, 50 plus investors, that were more interested in a cure for their aging, and they took control. They bought all the other investors out, and they left me with 100% ownership of Sierra Sciences. And so now I just don't, I don't, I won't let investors come in if the first thing they say to me is, how long until I get a return on my investment? It's like I walk away. It's like if they ask how long until we can cure aging, and I'll say, yeah, when we do cure aging, I want to drop it from airplanes, make it available to everybody. And
Right. Well, don't
when they,
tell them that. Tell
well,
them we'll make a profit. It's fine.
that's I think one of the things that's been making me more successful at getting in touch with some of these unknown ultra high net worth individuals. And they have their own obstacles to come in with funding.
Mm,
I've learned that people that do have a lot of money, they have a lot of difficulty in turning their wealth into cash. And so, but I am working with a few, and I'd love to find somebody that actually can easily convert their
yeah.
wealth into cash and start doing some of the funding.
We should also do like a GoFundMe website, a GoFundMe and all the influencers, all the famous people, just plug it. Just say, hey, but just mentioning it, Even people that aren't super rich can chip in, any dollar amount is gonna help.
Okay, I'm a really good scientist. I spend most of my time at the lab bench doing science, but I have brought in hundreds of people that have done things like GoFundMe things on my behalf to raise money for me. It's like, try to uh, market products that I've invented to be a go-to-market partner, stuff like that. It's really, really tough. They've never had any success. There's a few companies like Touchstone Essentials. They've had success. That they're doing really well with selling this product because it works. But there's other products. Like I've invented a pet product. Okay, people. It turns out dogs, cats, horses, sheep, pig, and deer are the only animals besides humans and non-human primates that actually age by telomere shortening. So we can create a product that will make your dog or cat or horse live
Yeah.
longer and healthier. And you would think, with people spending more money on the health of their pets than on the health of themselves, you would think that we'd have people coming forward. But I've had these people working with me to find ways of putting money to start a company to market these things, and they can't get the money. Okay. And so again, I mean, if your audience, anybody in your audience wants to start marketing some blockbuster products. I've got a list of like 25 different things that they can do that are ready, and most of them are ready to market right now.
Tell
Uh,
us, what are the products?
well, as you know, I was National Inventor of the Year for my cancer research. I know a lot about cancer, but I have the best thing for treating cancer. It just requires a little more research, which I call assembly. It's not research. I know what needs to be made, but it costs money to make it. Okay. And then test it. And I'm 99% sure this would be the best cure for cancer ever. I have in house here the best diagnostic for cancer ever. It is, let's see, 85%, no, 90% certain of diagnosing a cancer as being a cancer, 85% certain of saying that something is not a cancer, okay, which is way better than any other uh, cancer test on the planet. Most doctors, when they do a biopsy, they look at the cancer in the microscope. That's all they do, and uh, and then they get it wrong half the time because it's about 50% accurate. I've also got tests for ways of testing whether a chemotherapy will work on a particular person. Okay, I mean, it turns out, let's say 5-fluorouracil, which is a chemotherapy. Turns out 10% of the people on the planet have a version of what's called thymidylate synthase, which is what 5-fluorouracil attacks. The the thymidylate synthase has a variant in 10% of people that makes them so sensitive to the 5-fluorouracil that the 5-fluorouracil kills them, not the cancer. They die from the 5-fluorouracil. And then there's another 10% that have a version of thymidylate synthase that's extremely insensitive, and the 5-fluorouracil doesn't work at all. So, I mean, people aren't testing. Doctors are treating patients with 5-fluorouracil and other things without testing to find out if their product, if their chemotherapy actually works, okay, or if the chemotherapy is going to kill the person. And then there are a few companies that will test the cancer cells to see that the thing works, but then they don't test the non-cancer cells to see if the non-cancer cells are not sensitive to the chemotherapy. And again, that's why 5-fluorouracil kills a lot of patients, because their non-cancer cells are so sensitive to it. There's so many other chemotherapies, but we need to have, these are the kind of things I have, but I also have something called immortal pet cloning. Okay. We already have companies all over the world that if your pet dies, you can collect some tissues from that pet, send it to that company. They will clone your new pet from those cells, and you'll have the identical pet. It won't have the same brain or anything like that, but it'll be the model of the same pet. I have liquid nitrogen tanks here filled with people's pet cells ready to take this on. But what I would do if I had the funding is I would first, before taking the cells and cloning and making a new pet out of those cells, I would first use gene therapy to insert, just like Liz Parrish did, to insert the telomerase gene into it, identify the cells that are producing enough telomerase to actually reverse aging, and then take that and turn it into a pet. And a lot of people say, well, that's going to give them all cancer. But it turns out, there's videos I have where I explain all this about telomerase does not cause cancer. Telomerase decreases the risk of cancer. So these pets we're going to have, they're going to be healthy, they're going to live longer, and they're going to have decreased chances of getting cancer and other diseases. So,
I just right before this morning, I was listening to Biogenerate. Or what's the name of the founder who started the company? He was with Dr. Church from he worked
George Church.
Dr. George Church, and then I think he worked on his doctoral dissertation there or a postdoc there, and then started this company where he's doing RGB01 gene therapy and another one, TRF. I don't know. But anyway, it's already being used on animals, approved and used on animals to elongate their life, like dogs and cats by 30%. Like, why are we giving permission? Like, why is it that pets have more rights than humans. Why aren't we expediting this on humans and making it easier for these treatments to be available to everybody who chooses to use it? You know, people have to make their own risk benefit decision.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of who you're talking about, but I know a lot of people
Dr.
that are
David, uh,
Sinclair.
it'll show up in my history on my YouTube right now. No, not Sinclair. Okay, his name is, let's go to history. Okay, Dr. Noah Davidson.
Yes.
Yeah. And
No,
are you familiar, with his company? Yeah. It's called, what's it called? Rejuvenate Bio.
yeah, he's not doing telomerase, which I
No.
don't understand why. And but yeah, there's a lot of gene therapies being done also in humans in clinical studies and things like that, but in animals. There is the Center for Veterinary Medicine. That's the division of the FDA, CMV. I think C stands for center. But people have to get approval from the FDA to even be doing animal treatments. So I assume that Noah's probably doing these outside the country or something like that right now. But
I
you
have to
know,
check. Yeah.
I haven't been following it that closely, especially since I don't think he's doing the right gene therapies. Oh,
Right, because if you just treat it at the root, then all the other stuff gets taken care of, as opposed to doing this and that and everything.
yeah, I believe, yeah, you can do 100 different gene therapies to reverse all the different age-related things you see, or you can do one thing, which is lengthen telomeres, because the telomeres control all the other things anyway. And
That's
that's
the hook for
that
this
part
video.
that
That's gonna
part
be the hook.
yeah, that part is a theory still. Okay, we don't know until we lengthen telomeres how many of the theories are going to become pointless. Okay, we until we actually do it. But I think there's a really good chance that we probably have every disease on the planet cured, except for alcoholism, sickle cell anemia, other things that are not age related. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, speaking of alcoholism, when you drink alcohol and you kill liver cells, okay, that's okay when you're young because every organ and tissue has frontline cells and reserve cells. Okay, the frontline cells are being killed. That's where all the action is from all the alcohol. But reserve cells can divide to replace those cells. But now, because of all the alcohol, these reserve cells are having to divide more often because the frontline cells are being killed more often. And so you are accelerating your aging of your liver. But that's okay when you're young. But it's when you get 40, 50 years old, suddenly your cells run out of telomeres and you can't replace the frontline cells anymore. And you get a collection of dead cells on the surface of your liver, and that's liver cirrhosis. And that's what kills you. So I said telomeres won't cure alcoholism, but it will cure liver cirrhosis resulting from drinking alcohol.
Right.
So again, people will
Right.
be able to drink more alcohol. It's not my main mission, but it's it's something that's a good analogy. It makes people understand. Same thing with muscular dystrophy. People have accelerated cell division in their muscle cells because of the dystrophin gene variant. And so when you're young, there's no problems. But it's all the reason why we've never evolved a way not to have uh, um, muscular dystrophy and cancer and heart disease is because all these things don't occur until after we've raised our young. And at that point, it's better for the species if they don't get cured. Okay.
Yeah.
And but that's what it comes all about. So every time you hear about something that accelerates cell division, but you can still make it until after you've raised your young, that's never going away unless we do it ourselves.
Exactly. We now it's our responsibility to speed up evolution and, help,
So
right,
or
help.
reverse evolution too in some ways. Yeah.
Right. That okay, how so though?
Well, because evolution is what's causing us to age. Evolution is what's causing us to get cancer. We
Gotcha.
need to reverse that. We need to focus on what's best for the individual, not necessarily what's best for the species, but we are solving that problem too with all the work that Elon Musk is doing and others for exploring other planets or getting out
Mhm.
into space and doing things. It's like
Yeah.
we even if an asteroid started coming to Earth and we know it's going to destroy the Earth, hopefully somebody like Elon Musk has a way to get us on another planet before that happens, which will
Yeah,
be survival of our species, and not by
exactly.
evolution but by human intervention. So
Exactly. Cure aging, populate this space so we can live a more abundant life and be more numerous, and then figure out if we can go back. That's for me. Go back in time via wormholes or teleportation. I heard Dr. DeGrasse Tyson say that
oh
actually a wormhole is probably better than teleportation because you don't dematerialize and rematerialize. So
yeah,
that
it's
was interesting.
I'm always get excited listening to him talk.
He's amazing. I know. Yeah.
There's one other thing that I wanted to say about televital.
Yes.
Um, okay, because I talked about how it slows down aging, but there are, and I'd be blind and not see this. Yeah, it's like I've got it right here too. The there's a lot of what appears to be age reversal occurring in a lot of people, including my identical twin brother who's on the product. He's just posted and stuff on Facebook about pictures and stuff like that. Some amazing things that are changing with him, and so trying to understand how is that possible when all we're doing is supposedly slowing down the rate of aging. It turns out from our studies here and other published studies that when telomeres get critically short, they become easier to lengthen. So it might be the critically short telomeres are getting lengthened in people that have critically short telomeres because we're seeing people's hair coming back. We're seeing hair color coming back. We're seeing vision getting better. We're seeing endurance getting better. We're seeing wrinkles that disappear, things like that. And I mean, some of that, maybe some people are faking it and doing things, but some of these things I've seen are real. And so here's the latest theory. This is now a theory. It might be that telomeres are not straight like the aglets on your shoelaces. They might be rolled up like a ball of yarn. And the tip of the telomere might be buried inside that ball of yarn. And so when a telomere is long and the ball of yarn is big, it's hard for telomerase to get access to the tip of your telomere because it's got to bind to the tip of the telomere to lengthen it. But when the telomere gets shorter, it becomes easier for telomerase to get to access to that telomere and lengthen it. So we might be seeing some age reversal, but this is purely theory right now. We don't have data supporting that, but I can't come up with any other explanation as to why we're seeing a lot of this age reversal things. And so I would like to hear from people, and I would like to provide my email address. I spend a lot of my time with a lab coat on in the bench. I'm 16 hours a day in the lab. I love to take breaks, go to my office, sit on my computer, and read emails. Okay, it's like something I enjoy and replying to them. So if people want to send me questions or give me updates on how they're doing and things like that, I would like to keep a tab of this because one of the things I'm good at is data analysis and being able to keep records of things. But
Mhm.
my email address is B as in boy, Andrews. So BANDREWS at Sierra Sci. That's SIERRASCI, short for Sierra Sciences.com. And so I'd love to hear from people. The website for Touchstone Essentials is probably the best place to go to learn about me because we don't have a great website. We're just a scientific research company. There's no point of promoting our website. But Touchstone Essentials has done that, and their website is www.thegoodinside.com. And people can learn a lot about telomere biology at that site.
Nice. I will make sure they are linked in the description box below so people can just copy paste it or click on the links right away. Can you tell us a little bit more? So it says here to take one capsule a day, and I can see, the telomerase activator blend. Those are the molecules that you have identified that activate telomerase, the enzyme that goes back and regrows the telomeres. And it's got organic turmeric root extract, pomegranate extract. They're all organic. Bicol skullcap root extract, hezi fruit extract, gallnut fruit extract, black pepper extract. So black pepper is a
Well,
telomerase
no. So
activator.
the first five are the telomerase inducers. The black pepper is both an antioxidant and an anti-inflammatory, but most important, it actually helps with absorption. So it helps the ingredients in those plant extracts to get into your blood and get to your other cells.
Gotcha.
The bottom two ingredients, which are wheatgrass and black currant, those are both natural antioxidants, anti-inflammatories. And so the fact that this product is organic means that it doesn't have something like vitamin C in it, which people think is a natural product. But actually, most vitamin C is synthetic. Turns out it's cheaper to make it than it is to purify it. So, so this product is only vegan, organic, and but those are the reasons they're in there. And the key thing is that yes, pomegranate is listed here. Well, people can go eat a pomegranate and it's not going to work because every plant is made up of 200,000 different types of molecules. There's a trillion molecules in a plant, but there's 200,000 different types of molecules. And there's going to be molecules in there that can inhibit the activities, some that can induce the activities. And so the whole plant extract isn't going to work. So that's why we make fractions of the plant extracts. So we'll separate the molecules based on size and charge and solubility. And we'll typically test 30 different fractions of a plant. Let's say pomegranate. We have 30 different test tubes. Each one's a different fraction of that plant. Only one of those will work, okay, if we're lucky. And so that's what's in here. So that fraction that worked. And sometimes we don't know, and most of the time we don't know. Even the fractions, they're still going to contain at least 10,000 different types of molecules. But it's only one of those molecules that's actually inducing the telomerase. We don't know which one it is,
Right.
but we know that some of the molecules that inhibit it are no longer in that fraction. And so that's why that 10,000 is okay. And then all these plant extracts already have benefits, and people have been taking them for 10,000 years for medical reasons. And so these fractions are going to have other things that are going to benefit people too, besides the lengthening of telomeres, or lengthening of telomeres enough to shorten the rate of telomere shortening.
Yeah. Yeah. So exciting. And I hope a lot of people watch this, share it with their friends and family, especially if they have rich friends and family members. And I think as more and more people start to learn about how much progress we're making in reversing aging, then I think a lot of people just kind of feel like, oh, it's just too big of a problem, so might as well just pretend like it's natural and normal to get sick, weak, and die and depressed, you know, right?
Amazing number of people that think that's normal. That's the way it should be, and I
Yeah,
just don't understand those people.
me neither, but I think the more we educate and create content and, interview Dr. Bill Andrews and all the other amazing scientists that are doing amazing work, it's knowledge. Because once you understand how much we can do, it's like, you mean I don't have to settle? Then the excitement, the money pours in, and then we have this global will to act quickly so that 60 million people that die every day from aging don't have to suffer and then die.
It's 150 million people who die from aging every day.
Really?
150, I'm sorry, it's 150,000 people that die of aging every day.
Every
Uh,
day. Yeah. Where did I get the 60? But doesn't that translate to 60 million? Because I heard it. Oh, I think it was
yeah, yeah.
Dr. Abrita Grace mentioned it. That's where I heard
And
it.
maybe it's 60 million a year. And I
A
have to go
year.
back. I've got so many slides and I give references to all that information and stuff like that. I got to go back and check my numbers too, because
It's a big
it's
number, regardless.
and there's so many numbers involved. I get them mixed up sometimes. But
Right,
yeah,
and
there's
then I don't know if it's like, well, I guess he was talking globally, obviously 60 million, right? It's not 60 million Americans dying every year when our right?
I think
It's
the number is 150,000 people in the world die from aging every day,
every year, every day. Wow.
every day. And I'm 90% certain of it, but let's just settle with a lot of people die every day from aging. Okay.
Yes.
We'll figure out the numbers later. In
Yep,
fact,
yep.
people can go listen to my YouTube videos and they can hear the exact numbers, because then I show the exact data and the source of the data and things like that. And if people, I should give my website too, which is www.sierrasci.com, SIERRASCI.com, short for Sierra Sciences. And there I have the best thing there is all my key YouTube videos and stuff like that, and documentaries. I've been the star of some uh, Emmy-winning documentaries, and also some uh, documentaries that almost won Oscars at the Academy Awards, and called the Immortalist, with stars me and Aubrey de Grey.
Right.
And I've been featured in Popular Science, and these are all sources of where people can get information. If they go to my website, they can click on a button that on my website that'll take them to a list of all these things, and they can hear all my 1 hour lectures on how we age, or what aging is, why we age, how we age, and how not to age. And
Yeah. Do and do you recommend the tests for the telomere length? What are your thoughts on that?
I, I'm the inventor or co-inventor of every test there is, and also every test for telomerase activity and expression. Uh, but I'm going to be honest with you, measuring telomeres is very difficult to do. But the best test, I think, for measuring telomeres is a company called LifeLength, LIFELENGTH, because they will measure the percent of telomeres that are critically short. And that turns out to be the strongest correlation with aging. So you want to increase the percentage, you want to increase your critically short telomeres and be able to measure that. So do before and after with this company, LifeLength.
Okay.
Um, the other methods like PCR and typical uh, what is called fluorescence in situ hybridization, I've shown over and over again that I can make the results any result I want them to be, just by slightly changing temperatures or salt concentrations in the reaction mixtures. And so anybody doing it can do it wrong. And I can have sometimes 10 different scientists do those tests and get different answers for somebody's telomere length. So I recommend LifeLength for measuring telomeres. There are two methods that we use here at Sierra Sciences. One's called TRF analysis, and the other one's called TeloSmart. That's TELOSMRT. They are far better than any of the commercially available ones, but they're really only good for research because they cost like $1,000 for us to do each one. And if there was somebody who wanted to market those and figure out ways of making it more affordable and stuff like that, those are part of that 25 list. Cancer diagnostics, aging diagnostics, epigenetics. People often call DNA methylation epigenetics, but it's not. Methylation is just a mechanism of epigenetics. It's a way of regulating genes. And but we do total RNA sequencing here, which is really the best test of epigenetics. And it doesn't look at just your epigenetics of your nuclear chromosome, but also your mitochondria and your microbiome. Okay, so it's really, and microbiome is extremely important in terms of aging. There's one other thing I want to say. There's a lot of companies out there claiming to have products that reverse aging. And they say so by looking at DNA methylation or IgG glycosylation or telomere length. And in all cases, I question them, because are they reversing aging, or are they just reversing the biomarker? And somehow you have to have a test to show that they're actually reversing aging. And So there's no way to do that with DNA methylation or IgG glycosylation. But in the case of product companies that claim that they can lengthen your telomeres, you have to ask that company, does their product induce telomerase expression like Telovito does? Because if it doesn't, the telomere lengthening that they're seeing is not lengthening at all. It's a result of the product being either toxic or immunogenic. And it's preferentially killing the blood cells that have the short telomeres, because short cells with short telomeres are more sensitive to toxins, or it's inducing cells that have long telomeres from your bone marrow or elsewhere to infiltrate your blood to help fight whatever disease that your body thinks it's having from the treatment. And as a result, the average length of your telomeres is longer, just as if you had a company and you fired your dumbest employees or hired geniuses. The average IQ of your company increases without anybody getting any smarter. Okay.
Mhm.
And so the same thing. So you got to ask these companies, especially the ones that are claiming to lengthen telomeres, are they producing telomerase? Do they have data showing their product induces telomerase? And it's easy to measure, but if they don't have the data, ask them why not when it's easy to do. And if they say, well, we just didn't think it was worth doing it, it's probably they did it and it didn't work. Okay. And but you got to ask these questions. If a company says they have a product that lengthens telomeres and they don't have data showing that it produces telomerase, then it probably almost certainly does not lengthen telomeres, does not reverse aging, and they should walk away from those companies. And there's a lot of companies that are doing that. And I don't want to mention names or anything like that, but I tell people, and there's videos me telling people how to really, what questions to ask to make certain that because I don't want to accuse the companies of lying. I just think they don't know themselves. They don't understand telomere biology or DNA methylation or IgG glycosylation or other things, other tests, biomarkers of aging as well as I do, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
going on and on, but
No, it's so
you want to
fascinating.
cut this out. You want to cut this out, but my next podcast starts in 10 minutes, so we got
Oh,
to wind up.
wow. We have,
Yes.
yes. I was trying to wrap it up, but I had to ask you about the
I,
tests,
I told you I'm the one who keeps it going. I keep thinking of things to say.
I
Yeah.
know it's just fascinating everything that you're doing. Again, it is such an honor. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast, and I will make sure that I post all your links so that everybody can keep up with everything that you're doing, and hopefully the message reaches even richer and richer people so we can get this done real soon. Thank you
Yes.
so much, Dr. Andrews, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you, everybody, for sticking with us till the end, and I will see you in the next one.